Let's try this shit again. Just because you're related to your parents, or just because they are your family, doesn't mean they get to treat you like shit. It doesn't mean that you get to be their punching bag whenever they feel like they need it. I'll tell you a little story about my brother, and then I'll tell you a more degenerative, perhaps more relatable story about my mother. Back when I was younger, me and my best friend were playing Modern Warfare 2, and shout out to Joey Bonzo in the chat. He knows who he is, he's watching, alright? Basically, we were playing Modern Warfare 2, we were playing this thing called survival mode, we were playing Seatown. And basically, you could survive up to a specific number of rounds. And we were on some absolutely astronomical, retarded round. Maybe it was like 90, 100, 110. But we were hitting PRs, you understand? And basically, we're having a blast. My brother, he comes home from school, whatever, I don't remember exactly what it is. But he sees that we're on Modern Warfare 2 and we're using the PlayStation. And he immediately barges in and says, "Yo, bro, get the fuck off. I'm trying to play NBA 2K by myself. I don't care if your friend's here, alright? Get the fuck out. You got your 1 hour of game time. Get the fuck out. It's my turn." So basically the ultimatum he gives us is, well, me, is after my friend leaves, he will indeed beat my ass. And if I go to tell my parents, well then, the likelihood of my parents beating my ass goes up a lot for whatever fucking reason. So I'm kind of in a pickle. So because I was the younger brother and I just constantly ate shit, we literally turned off our personal record fucking survival mode run just so this guy could play NBA 2K by himself and do fucking dynasty mode and fucking raise some dog shit ass dynasty franchise and get like fucking 32nd in the league. Man is fucking cooked. Now I have a story about my mother, which granted, I was being a degenerate, but me and my friend, let's call him Frosty. Frosty comes to my house. Frosty rings the doorbell, right? And my mother is in between apartments. She's looking down. She's figuring out what's happening. She's like a scout in the fucking Marines. She's on a reconnaissance mission. I walk downstairs, open the door for Frosty. Frosty says hello. My mother witnesses Frosty entering the building. So me and Frosty go upstairs. We do our degenerative thing. We grind up some weed because, you know, weed is legal and, you know, weed is enjoyable at times. So in an effort to kick back, we roll up a joint, we go downstairs, and we start smoking outside. Nothing out of the ordinary, right? My mother, I believe this is because she saw Frosty, she decided, and mind you, I have not interacted with her in about a week. It has been, I couldn't tell you the last time I interacted with my mother because I know that these interactions are basically going to happen. She comes through the basement door and starts berating us, right? Just, why are you smoking, blah, 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 like, it's gonna kill you, you don't clean the house, you're not good enough, you don't make enough money, like, all this shit. Just basically, why aren't you living up to my standard of who I want you to be? And I don't respond to it, I just sit there and accept it for maybe like 5 minutes. I respond with maybe 1, 2, 3 sentences total. And basically, just unfiltered for about 5 to 8 minutes, just going off and going back and forth, pretending like my mother would leave, and then going back and forth and spilling more anger and just negative shit. Now, let me ask you, why would any secure individual who, they themselves have flaws, right? They drink alcohol, like all this stuff. Why would any secure individual actually point out all these things that are wrong with you when you're simply trying to chill with your friend? What sane individual feels the need to go out of their way and tell you exactly what is wrong with you all the time? This is why we minimize contact. because this is a day in the life. This is a normal interaction. Now, you can make the argument, I'm being a degenerate, I'm smoking weed. More power to you. But nobody deserves to be treated like shit on a regular basis. And if you've lived in that situation, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, then like I can't do anything for you. Basically, living in these types of environments, experiencing something nice, like kindness, compassion, empathy, it's so fucking foreign, you don't know how to respond at first. You're like, when somebody says they're proud of you or they want to support you and make you feel good and give you something that like they see that you're lacking and try to help you in certain ways, you're like, holy shit, this is what support feels like? I've never had this in my fucking life. I was just the scapegoat all the time for why everything was going so wrong. It was always my fault. When a fucking piece of glass broke on the floor, it's my fault, of course. Just arbitrary random shit like that. I would always get the anger. As a result, I grew up quite unloving, and I didn't really understand what love is. I didn't really understand what caring for people is, and I still kind of do struggle with that. I guess I am selfish in a lot of ways, but it's also led me to be quite self-destructive and just escape the world a lot, because living in an environment like that where everyone is just a fucking asshole and everyone is against you it's really hard to survive and actually make it through that. As a result, I have so much fucking resentment built up towards people like, okay, I can't even get into it. Towards my mother specifically, and people like my brother just never really having the balls to ever apologize for being such an asshole all the time. Like, these stories that I'm describing to you, these are everyday occurrences. This is not once in a week, once in a month, once in a year. This is the people that I would interact with every single day. These interactions made me realize that I would rather be around people who are not my family, just absolute strangers, because the odds that they treat me like a human being are far higher than being around the people that I grew up with. Telling people they're behind their entire lives when you yourself are behind and significantly lacking and insecure, it's just such a pathetic transfer of energy. It is so sad to take that brilliant opportunity to put energy out into the world, and that's what you put out. It takes some really troubled people to do that type of stuff. All for their own selfish desires, of course. Because what's more important? I keep coming back for years and years and years, praying that maybe these people, I could maybe communicate with them better, or I could maybe show love and get through. But the reality is, these people are unlovable, and you're not going to fix them, ever. Unfortunately, you might be forced, like me, to just completely minimize contact and barely ever interact with them. Like, I can't even, it's so sad. I've tried to show love to my parents, and my father has been a lot more receptive of it. It doesn't really reciprocate it much, but my mother specifically, like, I can't even hug that lady. She uses every opportunity around to just tell you how inadequate you are, and how you need to be making more money, and how you need to be living up to the standard that she has put out, how your desires and your needs just don't matter. It just matters, like, I need you to do this, and if you're doing this, then whatever, maybe I'll find something else to shit on you for, but until then, I'm gonna shit on you with that. And if you can relate, please leave a comment. Holy fuck, I love hearing your stories. It's really taught me I can't really ever rely on my family, and it's so unfortunate because, like, who else do you have, honestly? Unless you're out here building some incredible relationships, like, who else do you have? It's really such a shame when You have to become your own parent from such a young age. The reality is, kids don't need to be adults from the age they're 12. And kids especially don't need to be figuring out trauma and depression and things like that without a fucking psychology textbook at the age of 12. Like, imagine trying to make sense of that through your feelings and experiences and trying to be aware. Like, that's a fucking feat. That takes so much time. So to all the people who say that they're behind in life, just understand that you had to take so much time you were literally learning psychology. You were learning about depression and trauma and processing emotion without a psychology book, without any sort of help from the age of fucking 12. What the fuck are you doing at 12? You're fucking playing basketball. Maybe that's a little bit more of an abstract idea, but like, you're fucking running around. Like, things aren't meant to be this complicated. Of course. If you have to allocate resources to something like that, of course you're going to feel behind. Those are areas that neurotypical, normal people who didn't grow up in such a shit environment never had to deal with. Don't compare yourself to those people. I'm proud of you as far as you've come, honestly. Swallowing your ego can be one of the hardest things imaginable. But the reality is, if we don't swallow our ego, and it's really easy for me to sit in my nice chair and say this right now. Not swallowing our ego might result in we wake up the next day and 5 years later, all this time has passed. It's literally just been 5 years. Like, I looked back the other day and it's really been, actually no, it's been 4 years. It's been about 4 years. Fuck. Living in the same environment. Think of how much growth you have robbed yourself. Being in the same environment with these same people, seeing the same miserable, just fucking depressive dementia every single day, the same depressive narcissism every single day, the same asshole brother every single day. Constantly telling you that, just constantly robbing you of your joy. Like, you just did a PR run. Not good enough. I did 2 miles the other day. Never good enough. Fuck that guy. It might seem like we're behind, but maybe we're just in it for the longer term. Maybe this is more of a long haul kind of play. With that being said, we will have tools to be empathetic, to understand people, to build relationships way better than the shit our family or our parents or our siblings could ever. Because we understand people and we wouldn't dare treat them the way that they have treated us. So there is strength in it, there is value in it, and it will manifest in certain ways in your life that are just going to be beautiful, like relationships that actually keep you going and people who care about you, for example. And I just want to say that it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You had to take time to figure this shit out. It can be so fucking difficult. And it takes so much time to understand, especially as a kid. Like I said, imagine being a fucking kid and you're doing some college level fucking reading and you don't even have the fucking book. You're just using your thoughts, feelings, and awareness to fucking interpret that. It's not your fault. It takes time. You just have a certain area of your life that you are drastically better at, awareness and such, than 99% of people. That's fine. That makes you you. And honestly, personally, I don't know if I would have it any other way. I want to be a fucking freak in the gym. I want to train insanely hard. I want to take out that trauma and dump it somewhere. It's not your fault. In order to survive that environment, you had absolutely no other choice. You had to take your time, your mental energy to recuperate, fucking live through that type of stuff. You had to take all of that, allocate all those resources while you were doing everything else that every other kid and every normal fucking human growing up was doing without any things that were hindering you. in order to simply survive. And you may have picked up some negative habits along the way, like withdrawing, escaping, coping. But that's not anything that you can't fix. In fact, that's actually fairly easy to fix. Now, bad habits last a long time, but I'm starting to learn a lot about habits. And the hardest thing is always starting it. And once you could sleep on it and constantly reinforce it in your brain, then you'll make progress. But you have to accept how difficult and painful and how much limbic friction you're actually going to encounter. To tell you the truth, you are a very smart individual. And I don't say smart because you're gifted. I say smart because you learn a lot and you study a lot and you've tried to figure this stuff out and it's interested you from such a young age. But it does take a lot of time to figure it out. So use those strengths rather than looking at the consequences of your experiences as weaknesses. Because you can help people and you may feel like you're down here and you're worthless. But the reality is, going through this experience actually allows you to be worth a lot. Now, nobody deserves to suffer. I really want water at this point. Now, nobody deserves to suffer. Believe me, there's way too much of that shit going on nowadays, and we know way too much about it. Way more than we were intended. But the reality is, going through these experiences and surviving builds a lot of character. And with what I said, it leaves you better equipped than 99% of people to actually make a change in this world and add value and help do what you've always wanted to do. Use your trauma and turn it into gold. This is the beauty of the universe. The universe allows you, and because you exist in it, it allows you to transmute that absolute darkness, that pain, that fucking misery, and you could turn it into gold. You could turn it into light. You could turn it into 1 year and a half, 1 year and 6 months from now, and you will be fucking shocked. You couldn't even fathom the level of effort and the beauty that you could bring into this fucking earth. You're not behind in life. You were just forced to allocate so many resources to this struggle. And I'm simply glad that you're alive and you've survived. The universe has placed you exactly where you need to be so you could become the person that you should be. Trust me, it gets a lot better with time and each time that you process emotion. And it gets a lot better once you leave this place and you never have to rely or interact with these cold, heartless, just people that are best left alone. Again, it gets a lot better. And I believe in you. Just please don't give up.